No car videos this week. I'm on holiday from work, so you'll have to put up with me sitting in the garden. I'm trying to get some peace. I've got my grandchildren, or a couple of my grandchildren, staying with me, so they take up a little bit of time. So coming out here is where you come for peace. Can you hear it? Here she comes. Okay, I'm back. I had a few minutes game of flip the bottle, which didn't go particularly well, and my granddaughter's gone off in disgust that I'm not able to do that magic flip that's going to make it really clever. She can't do it either, so there you go. So today's video is about All or Nothing, the TV documentary out on Amazon Prime. I did watch it yesterday, sat and got through the whole thing. Bit of a anticlimax, I guess, because obviously we were all hoping that this was going to come out the day after a rousing victory against Everton, which clearly was not the case. But I want to talk about that game, to be fair. I want to talk about the series, because I think it's become a bit of a damp squib type thing. I haven't seen an awful lot of YouTubers talking about it where they were previously, because everyone was getting a little bit hyped up about it, and it's kind of just, died off, I guess. But all in all, I still felt it was quite an interesting documentary. It was quite good to see some of the stuff that was in there. A little bit disappointed about a couple of things. I was disappointed that they didn't do anything around the racism issue with Rudiger. I would have liked to have seen some of the conversations around that and the investigation and what they did, just to prove that Tottenham fans weren't racially abusing that guy. I'd have also liked to have seen a little bit more about the Eric Dyer getting into the crowd. I mean, you could see that he was really unhappy about what had gone on, but they didn't really cover any more than that, and I think there was a lot more they could have covered in terms of the aftermath, and maybe speaking to him about it subsequently would have been quite an interesting conversation. But there were some interesting bits. There was quite an interesting segment about Tanguy Ndombele, which I thought was quite interesting. Clearly he struggled to settle, and he went off and spoke with the player mediation guy, and then had a conversation with Daniel Levy, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't even consider that would be a thing, that you would go off and speak to a mediator type person. I would have expected that, maybe the agent would have done all the talking on behalf of the player. So I was quite interested in that little bit. I thought that was quite different. It seems his big issues have been injury-wise. So he's obviously suffered some kind of problems. And they talked a little bit about intensity of the training and intensity of the matches, and I guess that's something that maybe has taken him really by surprise. Subsequently, I've seen some stuff yesterday or today of Mourinho saying that he's trained the best he's trained since he's been there, and that he has fantastic potential. And I think, a lot of people calling the guy out as a fraud and as a waste of money and all the rest of it, but he's a young guy, and I think coming to play where you're if you're considered the next big thing in one place, and then you go off to work in another place, and actually it's a lot harder than you thought, and it's taking you longer to settle in and understand what's going on, the culture, the attitude, the people, and all the rest of it, and you can't really understand what they're talking about. It must be quite difficult. And I think, he is an undoubted talent. It's just whether we can unlock that potential to get the best out of him. So this season's a big season for him, I think. I think the club are prepared to see what comes of it. But it's a big season for the lad. But it was quite interesting to see, how he'd settled in with the other French players out there, how they're kind of looking out for him and getting a lot of support from Sissoko, who, to be fair, had a really bad, couple of years when he started, and then kind of come to fruition. Obviously now people are falling out of love with that guy as well. So, but it does show that there's a lot of determination to try to get him settled, to get him into the ethos of the club. So yeah, I think that was quite an interesting segment, to be fair. The next element that I thought was really interesting was the fact that Mourinho and João Sacramento actually called the players out and basically shamed the whole team in terms of their performance and the fact that they weren't helping their fellow players. I mean, it was really good to see. There are lots of people calling out Mourinho and saying that, he's saying things and he's divisive and all those kind of stuff. And I get all of that. And I didn't want Mourinho to come in as our manager. Didn't want Pochettino sacked, if I'm being really honest. I would have rather have seen him backed than sacked. But at the same time, we are where we are. We've got to get behind the team and see if we can kind of move it forward. But I do honestly think that some of the things that Mourinho is saying to the players is bang on. It's stuff that we say. We meet in pubs. We do YouTube videos. We have WhatsApp groups. We listen to podcasts and all that kind of stuff as fans. And fans are calling out that there is no passion and there's no drive. I guess it's one of those situations where you can say what you want about someone because they're your family member or your team or whatever, but what you don't want is other people saying it. So, it's okay for us to slag off players or to slag off the team, but what we don't want is we don't want to hear our manager doing it. And I've never really been a fan of it overall, like in public. I think a lot of that stuff is stuff that you should do behind the scenes in the changing room. But this was in the changing room. This was him talking directly to the players. And calling them out for essentially not having the passion or the drive to do what needed to be done. The most disappointing thing about it is that even though we've seen him talk about that many times and talk about that kind of scenario, the problem is they're still not doing it. So that's what really worries me, is why are they not able to buy into that element of work rate? Forget about tactics, forget about how you want to play and all the rest of it. If arguably one of the best coaches in world football, one of the most decorated managers in football, doesn't inspire you to at least give your best, to at least play with passion and drive you on to listen to what they're saying, then that doesn't really give you a lot of hope. And I guess that's the point I'm making. So overall, I thought that the documentary was entertaining. I thought it gave us a decent insight into the club and the players and how they are mollycoddled and how they live in this bubble. I felt that there's probably other stuff that we could have got more into. I mean, the COVID thing, the fact that they didn't really get into that was a bit disappointing. And like I say, there's other bits and pieces. Like a proper transfer, it would have been interesting to see a little bit more into Stephen Bergwijn's transfer and stuff. But overall, it was entertaining. I did enjoy it. But I'll be interested to see a comparison with maybe the Man City one, which I haven't watched, to see how different they are. I'm guessing Liverpool will be the next ones to go through the process in their attempts to retain the Premier League title. So it'll be interesting to see what Klopp lets the production people put into it and talk about his tactics and stuff. But yeah, so overall, worth a watch, recommended. But don't expect to get too much into it. It still leaves a lot of unanswered questions. But worth a watch. Up the Spurs.